6:45, this is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj, read by Sounditavam. The President calls for unity in building a new Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka and France commit to boost ties at inaugural bilateral consultation. The Eastern Province Governor assures no ethnic biases involved in land distribution. Today is Vap Poya Day. Vap Full Moon Poya Day marks the end of the 3-month retreat by Buddhist monks known as the Vas rainy season. Emergency hotlines set up for Sri Lankans in the Middle East. The government allocates over 5 billion rupees for medicine supply. A sum of 2 billion rupees necessary to repair 30 dilapidated bridges countrywide. In news overseas, top US-China diplomats begin 2-day talks in Washington. In sports, South Africa rise to the top by the barest of margins in thriller against Pakistan. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has urged all politicians and citizens to set their sights on a new vision for the nation, emphasizing the need to build a new country, a fresh economy, and a reinvigorated political system united for the common good. The head of state made this solemn call to all politicians and citizens alike, acknowledging the inherent political differences in a multi-party democracy. These comments were made during the event held at Royal College in Colombo yesterday to mark a century of educational excellence at Reed Avenue, the President's media division said. During his speech, the President also lauded the remarkable quality of education provided by Sri Lanka's schools, with a special mention of institutions like Royal College. He stressed that the A-level curriculum in Sri Lanka is renowned for its rigor and its special emphasis on nurturing exceptional students while maintaining a high standard of academic excellence. President Wickremesinghe underscored the significance of the current moment, describing it as a turning point where the old order is facing a crisis. The Consular Affairs Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Colombo has set up 2 emergency hotline mobile numbers for Sri Lankan nationals residing in the Middle East. Accordingly, the hotline numbers 009471 757 536 or 0094711 466 585 was set up for Sri Lankan nationals residing in the Middle East to contact the ministry pertaining to any concerns or assistance that may be required with regard to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Issuing a release in this regard, the ministry further noted that the Consular Affairs could also be contacted during regular office hours via the landline telephone number +94 112 338 837 and email, the email address being repatriation.consular@mfa.gov.lk. All Sri Lankans residing in the Middle East who are also advised to exercise utmost caution, avoid travelling to areas affected by the conflict, and keep in constant contact with the Sri Lankan missions in Tel Aviv, Israel, and Ramallah, Palestine, in case of any emergency. The Governor of the Eastern Province, Senthil Thondaman, has emphasized that land distribution in the Eastern Province is conducted in full accordance with legal procedures by the Ministry of Mahaweli and remains free from any ethnic or religious biases. Speaking at a press conference held at the Presidential Media Centre yesterday, Thondaman also warned that any attempts to disrupt the land distribution activities within the Eastern Province will result in legal action taken by the police. The Governor further emphasized that steadfast commitment is maintained to upholding the law as a unified Sri Lankan nation with a resolute focus on the well-being of all ethnic groups. Further elaborating on the matter, Thondaman said, in the years following the end of the war, residents of the Meltamadu Developer Patana area in the Eastern Province have gradually begun to resettle in those areas. Consequently, arrangements have been made to allocate relevant land for agriculture and dairy farming. A significant number of individuals from Polonnaruwa and Ampara were relocated during the resettlement. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has instructed the provisions of temporary incentives to farmers from other districts who have come to protect their agricultural activities. Furthermore, the residents of Ampara and Polonnaruwa are actively considering early settlement in these areas. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The Health Ministry has set aside a substantial amount of 5.6 billion rupees to the Treasury to address the essential payments for the procurement of medicines, the Minister of Health and Industries, Dr. Ramesh Patirina, said. He said a memorandum will be submitted to the Cabinet to secure additional provisions for the supply of medicines over the next 2 months. Dr. Patirina made these comments during a special conference held yesterday, targeting the identification of existing challenges within hospitals and health institutes under the Health Ministry. The conference aimed to facilitate prompt and effective solutions to these issues, particularly those affecting basic hospitals. Addressing the gathering, Dr. Patirina stated that a detailed action plan will be devised to settle all pending bills for government hospitals in the near future. Furthermore, discussions were held during the conference concerning the shortage of healthcare professionals, including doctors and nurses, both in main hospitals and regional facilities. The scarcity of medicines in hospitals was also a key topic of debate. Attendees also deliberated on forthcoming measures for the well-being of mothers and children, while exploring the possibility of assigning staff from external companies to partner with the health sector in addressing these challenges. The Minister of Mass Media, Transport and Highways, Dr. Bandula Gunawardena, declared open the renovated bridge near Bamlapitia railway station yesterday. While participating in the opening ceremony of the replaced dilapidated bridge at the Bamlapitia railway station, the minister claimed that there are up to 30 dilapidated bridges across the country, and the Road Development Authority has estimated that more than 2,000 million rupees is needed for the repairs to be completed. The minister further said that due to the COVID-19 pandemic and following the economic crisis, none of these bridges could be repaired, no matter how badly they were damaged. He also said, however, the engineers and development heads who want to repair these bridges, all of them are stuck without funds. The Treasury does not have even a single cent after paying the salaries and pensions of the government servants and also some of the payments. The government collected a total revenue of 1,751 billion rupees from taxes imposed on the people in 2022, of which 72% of the total revenue was allocated for public servant salaries and pensions. Another 506, remaining 28%, was allocated for samudhi and other concessions, he said. All the other expenses were met through local and foreign loans. Our country is not getting any foreign loans as we are unable to settle them. Until the debt restructuring is completed, none of the politicians or any other person will be able to practically settle any loans, he said. Sri Lanka and France this week convened the inaugural bilateral consultations between the two foreign ministries at senior official level in Colombo. The consultations are part of the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Sri Lanka and France, which took place on October 27, 1948. The consultations focused on strengthening bilateral relations, supporting ongoing work on existing projects and initiatives, and identifying new areas of partnership and coordinated action between the two countries. The consultations reflected the desire expressed by President Ranil Wickremesinghe and President Emmanuel Macron during their meeting in Colombo on 28 July 2023 to strengthen the partnership between the two countries. The two parties reviewed progress in political relations, security, cultural cooperation, and people-to-people contacts. They expressed their shared commitment to the values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. The parties discussed the expansion of trade, investment, tourism, and development cooperation between the two countries and between Sri Lanka and the EU, including the setting up of relevant modalities to facilitate economic cooperation between Sri Lanka and France. The parties committed to strengthening cooperation in the field of education by welcoming the support of France towards the teaching of the French language in Sri Lanka, as well as strengthening cooperation between the two countries through academic and research exchanges between institutions of higher education. And that's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatma.
Today is Vap Poya Day. And Vap Poya Day marks the end of the 3-month retreat by Buddhist monks known as the Vas rainy season. The laity offer katina robes on Vap Poya Day to the Buddhist monks as an act of merit and to gain good karma. The month of also called the Chivara Masya, month of robes, or the Katina Masya, month of steadfastness. Katina means firm, strong or solid. Chivara means robe. Also known as the Vas or rain season, this is a period of retreat where the monks stay indoors in their monasteries. Vap usually falls in October and is a public holiday in Sri Lanka. Buddhists all over the country visit temples to observe Sil and make offerings of flowers and incense. As on all other poor days, the sale of liquor and meats is prohibited. The Vas retreat, which begins on Asala Poya, comes to an end on Vap Poya, and thereafter commences the Katina period. This period lasts for a duration of a month until the next Poya in November. Many religious observances are being organized in Buddhist temples and viharas island-wide to mark this day.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
On to Watchlight, the number of dengue cases in several areas of the Western Province and in the Kandy district of the Central Province has increased. The National Dengue Control Unit says most of the breeding grounds for mosquitoes have been identified around schools and religious places in many areas. The director of the National Dengue Control Unit, Dr. Nalin Aryaratna, said 66,652 dengue cases have been reported in Sri Lanka so far this year. That's Watchlight, and on to a bulletin of world news. The UN General Secretary calls for truce in the Middle East. Japanese government preparing to impose sanctions on Hamas. And China hails lead Premier Lee despite early exit from center stage. The United Nations General Assembly has adopted a resolution calling for a humanitarian truce in the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Assembly members gathered on Friday for the second day of a rare emergency meeting. Delegates from Jordan submitted a draft resolution on behalf of Arab countries calling for a break in the fighting to protect civilians. A day earlier, Palestinian permanent observer to the UN, Riyad Manzoor, urged the body to vote to stop the killing. NHK has learned that Japanese government officials are making final arrangements to impose sanctions on Hamas amid the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinian Islamic group. Japan has strongly condemned Hamas militants' attacks on and abductions of civilians, describing them as terrorist attacks. The officials said the sanctions are intended to make Japan's position clear and to stem the flow of revenue to the group. China's state-run broadcaster says former Premier Li Qiang continued supporting the party leadership, centering on President Xi Jinping even after he stepped down from the post. China Central Television covered Li's death for about 10 minutes as one of its top news stories on Friday night. The broadcaster described Li as an outstanding leader of the party and country. It also said that he built a new development structure and promoted high-level development amid a number of challenges, such as the coronavirus pandemic and an economic slowdown. And that concludes this bulletin of world news.
Development news.
Expect to bolster speedier and convenient service to investors to Central Depository Systems. CDS, a fully owned subsidiary of the Colombo Stock Exchange, recently signed an agreement with LankaPay, Sri Lanka's national payment network, joining its online payment platform to develop an innovative platform to facilitate a seamless and secure payment experience for investors. The new payment platform promises to transform how investors participate in initial public offerings, rights issues and other offers. The new CDS payment service is an electronic IPO and e-rights payment service enabled via the CSC mobile app and CDS web portal. That's development news, and on to sports. South Africa's one-wicket win took them level with India on 10 points at the top of the table, but ahead on the net run rate. As Keshav Maharaj exploded into celebration, having swung Mohammad Nawaz to the fine leg boundary for the winning runs. With the number 11 for company, waves of relief washed away his teammates watching from the dressing room. South Africa had thrown off the yoke of the choke by the barest of margins against Pakistan in Chennai to chase successfully for the first time in their World Cup 2023 campaign. Scores: Pakistan batted first and made 217 46.2 overs. In reply, South Africa reached the victory target in their 48th over, losing 9 wickets. That came to you in sports news. Business news up next.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දඟපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Lanka IOC PLC has been granted the renewal of the petroleum products license for a period of 20 years, with effect from January 22nd, 2024, a posting in the Colombo Stock Exchange said. After privatization of the petroleum sector several decades ago, LIOC, the Indian-based company, was the first petroleum operator to be given licenses to launch services in Sri Lanka. They also have storage and refined facilities in Trincomalee. That's business news, economic news up next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දඟපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news, the usage of the e-commerce platforms in Sri Lanka is rapidly increasing and is expected to double from the current 2% to around 4% to 5% by 2025, said the Chief Commercial Officer Dara Sri Lanka, Oshan Ranatunga. He said that the shift towards the increase of e-commerce in Sri Lanka happened before the COVID-19 pandemic, but it further increased during the COVID-19 time as many wanted to save time and transport costs. He said that today most of the people use e-commerce platforms for food delivery, hospital consultations, hotels and air ticket bookings and also for transport. That's economic news.
Weather report.
The Met Department says the atmospheric conditions are getting favourable to enhance afternoon showers. Showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in most provinces of the island after 1 p.m. today. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimetres are likely at some places in the Sabragamo and Uva provinces, also in Kalutara, Galle and the Mathura districts. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the central, Sabragamo and Uva provinces during the morning. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimise damage caused by temporary localised strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published this morning at 4:30 a.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The President calls for unity in building a new Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka and France commit to boost ties at inaugural bilateral consultation. The Eastern Province Governor assures no ethnic biases involved in land distribution. Today is Wap Poya Day. Wap Full Moon Poya Day marks the end of the 3-month retreat by Buddhist monks known as the Vas rainy season. Emergency hotline set up for Sri Lankans in the Middle East. The government allocates over 5 billion rupees for medicine supply. A sum of 2 billion rupees necessary to repair 30 dilapidated bridges countrywide. Top US and China diplomats begin 2-day talks in Washington. And South Africa rise to the top of the barest of margins in thriller against Pakistan. With that, we conclude this morning's news broadcast, and now it's back to your host, Sanal, who is all set and ready to keep you well entertained this Saturday morning, being a full moon Poya Day. A very good morning to you, Sanal, and it's back to you.